Hi, it's Diederik Gelderman here. Welcome back. Welcome back to part 2 of video 2 of my war on the ignorance in the veterinary industry of practice finances. In the last video, we learned all about setting monthly budgets and looking at cash flow. Today, we're learning all about cost-based accounting. So I've just made some notes that I'll refer to. This is so important, I didn't want to forget anything. That's why I've made some notes. So how do you base your fees and charges? What do you base them on? Yeah, okay. Drugs, there'll be a certain markup. Pathology, there'll be a markup. But what about your professional fees? What about your OTCs and a lot of other things? Well, you know, I've heard all sorts of different things at workshops. People have said to me, I charge what my accountant tells me to. Well, how many other veterinary clients does your accountant has? And with respect to him or her, do they really know what you should be charging? Another person, I've heard this again, oh, well, I ring around and I base what I charge based on what everyone else charges. Well, hang on a minute. If they're going bust because their fees and charges are so poorly designed, you're going to go bust as well. Does that make sense? Third thing is, listen to what Joe, the plumber, told me to charge. Oh, come on, get a grip. And that's a serious one. I've heard that one a number of times. Other people say, and excuse me if you don't like this expression, I base it on a thumb suck. Now, that's an Australian idiom, I know, but people have told me that. So it's based on what we charged when we took over the practice. I've compared myself to benchmark studies and I typically charge what the benchmark studies tell me. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, benchmark studies these days are typically only done by the second and third tier practices. Most of the top tier practices no longer carry on or do benchmarking or take part in most benchmarking surveys. So if you're basing yourself on benchmarks, you're comparing yourself to the cream of the very average practices and not the cream of the really good practices. So I'm not sure that one works. Copying your competitors, what my accountant told me to charge. Now, today we're only going to talk about professional fees. Okay, those other things, OTCs and pathology markups and all those sorts of things, that's a whole other video in its own right. And I'm not going to talk about that today. We're only going to talk about professional fees. Thumb suck. Now, typically in non-vet, people will use what's called cost-based accounting. Okay, and what that means is that you actually calculate what it costs you to provide, first of all, your staff, whether that's a vet or a nurse or a receptionist or a tech, to provide that service. And then you also work out what it costs you to provide the other bits and pieces that go on to make that service. And then you add the two together and that's what you charge the client. That's called cost-based accounting. It's based on facts, figures, numbers, and that makes economic sense. Now, there's one computer program, RxWorks, for example, and I'm not promoting RxWorks, please. I'm not saying that at all. I like the program, I'm not promoting it. So, but RxWorks is the only program that I'm aware of in which you can put your staff wages, your veterinary wages, etc., and it will actually calculate for you what you should be charging a procedure out at. So that makes it very, very easy for you. There's no other software that I know of, veterinary software that I know of that does that. So what you need to do is to use a cost-based accounting system, there's a number of steps, and I want to go through that with you today. So the first step is knowing what to charge for your staff time. Now, in the attachments for today's video, there are staff charge out calculators. Okay, so I've made it really easy for you. Just download them, see what hourly rate you pay your staff at, whether that's a veterinarian or a nurse or a receptionist or whatever, and it'll give you it's just a simple framework. You just look at it and see what you need to charge your vets out at, your receptionists out at, your nurses out at, etc., etc. So that's the first step, okay, is knowing what to charge your team members out at. The second thing is knowing what's involved in a procedure. So I've given you an example taking an X-ray, a DV or an AP lateral, DV, VD lateral, whatever, a 2-view X-ray. That's on there as well. So when you see that spreadsheet, you'll see it says cost of time for the receptionist to answer the phone, the amount of time taken for a receptionist to answer the phone, amount of time taken for the animal to be admitted, the amount of time taken for the animal to go from admission to the wards, the amount of time taken from the wards to the surgical suite, from the surgical suite back to the wards, the amount of time taken to take the X-ray, the amount of time it takes the vet to interpret the X-ray, the amount of time it takes the vet to write up the findings, the amount of time for the vet to do the discharge appointment, the amount of time taken for the nurse to or receptionist to do the discharge, etc., etc., etc. You'll see that all there. It's a PDF. Both those documents are PDF. Again, they come straight from my one-on-one coaching clients. These are the things that I would use with my one-on-one clients and that we would go through for all the major procedures in the hospital to work out exactly what to charge for each procedure to make sure that we're making a fair and reasonable profit on each procedure. Now, I've given them to you as PDFs. My coaching clients, we use live Excel spreadsheets, but for today I've given you a PDF. This material also is directly out of my Veterinary Practice Finances Made Easy training program. So this is my high-end Veterinary Practice Finances training program that a lot of my clients choose to use as well. And this is directly from that training program, except here it's a PDF, not a live Excel worksheet. Okay, so you need to know the cost of your staff. Then you need to work out what you calculate for a service based on what I've just been through. And like I said, I've used the cost of an X-ray as an example. So you've got all those documents there now. You can go straight into the process of doing the X-ray for yourself. Here and now, you've got all the data, you can do it very simply and easily. So I just want to close today by going through the action steps for you. And to make sure I haven't forgotten anything, I've got them written down. And the action items are really important. Sitting there and watching and listening to this video and saying, oh, Dick, that's really good information. Thank you very much. Love it. Yeah, okay, that's fine, but it doesn't get you anywhere. 10% of knowledge comes from reading or watching or listening to something. 80% of knowledge comes from implementing something. So you've got the 10% now. The 80% is going to come when you take action, and these are the things that you need to take action on. The first thing is, based on the last video that we did, create a cash flow. Okay, so start off and do January, February, March, do 12 months. And then once you have 12 months, you can create a budget from that. So that's number one. The second thing is to start looking at your major professional fees and do a cost-based accounting on your major professional fees and start seeing that you're making a fair profit on those major professional fees. A fair profit for you, a fair charge for your client. At the beginning of the last video, I promised you some action items, and here they are. Remember, 10% of knowledge and understanding is gained by watching or reading or listening to or whatever, okay? 80% of knowledge is gained by actually doing. So you've got the 10% of knowledge now because you've watched and listened. Now it's time to get that 80% by actually doing. So there's two action items today. And one is to start creating your monthly cash flow. You know, simply get the data within 7 days of the end of every month and start putting it into place. If you really want to go gangbusters, then sit down and get some retrospective data from the last few months or the last 12 months and turn that into a 12-month cash flow for yourself. That's really going to help you sing and really help you understand where the challenges or problems and opportunities are in your practice. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, the second action step, is to start calculating using a cost-based accounting system, start calculating the cost to you of your staff and therefore you know what to charge them out at to your clients, and to start looking at your major, remember it's that 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle, start looking at the major services that you provide and do a cost-based analysis on them to make sure that you're charging them out correctly so that you're making a fair profit. One of the things I really want to hammer politely in a nice way, really indoctrinate you with, if you like, is that you need to create a habit that every month, within the 7th day of the end of the previous month, you sit down and look at your practice finances, and that you dedicate 1 hour a month. That's all it's going to take, 1 hour a month, to implementing the things that we talked about on the previous video, this video, and that we're going to talk about on the next few videos. Because imagine how fantastic you're going to feel when you dedicate that 1 hour, you know everything in your practice is right, and then you can sleep, like a baby for the next 30 odd days, knowing your practice is financially sound. Now, 1 hour a month to manage your practice finances, it's crazy not to make that happen in your practice, okay? Now, if you think the material in this video is really powerful, you wait till we talk in the next 2 or 3 videos. There's so much in those about the psychology of money with your client. One of the things that I haven't had time to go into in these videos, and that I won't have time to go into, are some really important points about psychology. The psychology of you and your team about money, especially your team. The psychology of your clients about money, and the psychology of markups, pricing, and price points, both of your professional fees, your service, your products, and all those sorts of things. I'd love to do that, but we don't have the time. That's one of the key elements of your practice finances made easy training program, where this material comes from, is that we dedicate a whole module. It's a 7-part series, step-by-step blueprint series. We dedicate a whole module, which is about 6 or 7 hours, just to the psychology of pricing, price points, client psychology, and all those sorts of things. So I'll touch on it here and there in the next few videos, but if you really want to understand that stuff in depth, get in contact with me and we'll join you up to Veterinary Practice Finances Made Easy, the complete training program. Now, what's in the next video? The next video is all about KPIs, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators, or KPIs, are simple numbers that you set in your practice, that you watch those numbers, and if those numbers are perfect, then your practice is running perfectly. And on the whiteboard that I had here a little while ago, we gave you, we shared some KPIs on variable expenses, fixed expenses, facility expenses, etc., etc. And they're all very well and good. They're a nice start, but there are many more KPIs that we can use in a practice. And the financial KPIs are important, patient KPIs, patient standards of care KPIs. There's a number of other KPIs that we'll throw in. So we'll look at that next week. So specifically what we're going to look at is why you need a set of KPIs in your practice. Why do you need them? And which KPIs should you use? And there's no cover-all, catch-all, 5, 10, 15 KPIs that every practice should use. That's a fallacy. Don't let your veterinary friends or your accountant or whatever tell you these are the KPIs that you should use. Just not true. And we'll talk about that in more detail next week. We're also going to talk about how often you should monitor KPIs and who should monitor them in your practice. And then lastly, we're going to put an action plan in place that you can get the KPIs in place in your practice that actually are meaningful for your practice and to you. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video, which is all about KPIs. Bye for now.